I failed for years trying to give my loved ones a better life, so why did destiny choose to reward me only when I was at my lowest? I spent nearly a decade trying to buy my family's happiness with a success that refused to come, only to realize that the universe was waiting for me to lose everything before it finally gave me anything. I'm Nathan, 37. For years, I was obsessed with the idea of being the provider. I grew up watching my father, George, 68, struggle with debt, and my mother, Linda, 65, sacrifice every small comfort just to keep the lights on. I made a silent vow that I would be the one to change our family's DNA. I didn't just want to be comfortable, I wanted to be the man who handed them the keys to a life they never thought possible. My wife, Claire, 34, was my high school sweetheart. She supported me through the first 3 failed business ventures, a small landscaping fleet, an ill-fated e-commerce site, and a local gym that went under during a recession. She was patient, but by the time I was 33, that patience had turned into a weary, quiet resentment. I was so focused on the big break that would solve everything that I missed the thousands of tiny breaks happening in our relationship every single day. My younger brother, Justin, 31, was another weight on my shoulders. He was brilliant but lacked any sort of internal compass, constantly leaning on me for startup money for his own vague ideas. I kept giving, thinking that my success would eventually fix his instability too. I was trying to be a one-man rescue mission for 5 different people, but I was swimming with lead weights tied to my ankles. The first major realization I had to swallow was this: you can't pour from an empty cup, and trying to save everyone else while you're drowning isn't noble, it's a slow form of suicide. I thought my sacrifice made me a hero, but in reality, it just made me a ghost in my own home. The year I turned 35 was the year the floor finally fell out. My 4th venture, a specialized logistics software I had poured every cent of our savings into, didn't just fail, it imploded. We lost the house, we lost the cars. I had to watch Claire pack her bags while she told me, through tears that had no more anger left in them, that she couldn't live on, maybe, anymore. She didn't leave me because we were broke. She left because I had become a stranger who was more obsessed with a future that didn't exist than the woman standing right in front of me. What would you do if the person you were doing everything for decided they'd rather have a simple life without you than a rich life waiting for you? My parents were heartbroken, but their disappointment felt like a physical weight. My father's silent stares and my mother's, "It's okay, dear," messages felt more like indictments of my failure than comfort. Even Justin stopped calling once he realized there was no more money to be squeezed out of me. I moved into a windowless basement apartment that smelled of damp concrete and old regret. I took a job working graveyard shifts at a warehouse just to keep from starving. I was at my absolute lowest point. No wife, no house, no reputation, and a family that looked at me with a mixture of pity and exhaustion. I felt like a failure who had wasted his best years chasing a ghost. The strange thing about hitting rock bottom is that the fear of falling finally disappears. When you have nothing left to lose, you finally have the freedom to do things for the right reasons. In that basement, during the hours between my shifts, I started coding again. But this time, I wasn't doing it to save my parents or win back Claire. I wasn't trying to prove anything to George or Justin. I was doing it because the problem I was solving actually interested me. I was building a simple interface to help independent contractors manage their taxes and overhead, a problem I had faced intimately during my years of struggle. I worked in total silence. No one knew what I was doing. There were no grand announcements at Sunday dinner, no promises of future wealth to keep people around. For the first time in my life, I was working for me. I realized that for 10 years, my ambition had been a performance. I had been trying to buy love and respect, but in the isolation of that basement, I found a different kind of drive, a quiet, steady burn that didn't need an audience to stay lit. Have you ever noticed that your best work comes only after you stop caring what people think of the results? A year later, the software, now called Solo Track, caught the eye of a mid-sized fintech firm. They didn't just want to license it, they wanted to buy the entire thing. The offer was more money than I had ever dreamed of making in a lifetime. When the contract was signed and the money hit my account, I didn't feel the rush of triumph I had imagined for a decade. I didn't want to run out and buy a mansion or throw a party to show everyone I had made it. Instead, I went to a quiet park, sat on a bench, and cried for the man I used to be, the one who thought he had to be a god to be loved. The breakthrough came only when I was at my lowest because that was the only time I was finally out of my own way. I had stopped trying to control the outcome for everyone else and started focusing on the quality of my own craft. Destiny didn't reward my struggle, it rewarded my surrender. It waited until I stopped using my ambition as a weapon against my insecurities. The news of my success traveled fast, as it always does. Justin was the first to call, sounding as if we had been best friends all along. My parents were suddenly eager to have me over, their old pity replaced by a frantic kind of pride. Even Claire reached out, and while we had a long, painful conversation, we both knew the bridge had been burned too deeply to cross again. I did help my parents. I paid off their debts and set them up in a comfortable, manageable home. I gave Justin enough to get on his feet, but with strict boundaries he had never seen before. But the most important thing I did was keep my distance. I realized that the better life I had tried to give them for years wasn't something I could buy with a check. They had to find their own peace, just as I had found mine in that damp basement. My money could buy them comfort, but it couldn't buy them the growth that only comes from facing your own reality. The ultimate lesson of my life is this: you can only truly help the people you love once you realize you aren't responsible for their happiness. My failure was trying to be their savior, my success was finally becoming myself. If you lost everything today, would you have the courage to start again for yourself, or would the silence of your loved ones be too much to handle? I'm Nathan, and I'm finally living the life I dreamed of, but I'm living it on my own terms now. I want to hear your thoughts. Have you ever felt like you were carrying the world on your back, only to find success once you let go? Let me know your opinion in the comments below. If this story moved you or gave you a new perspective on your own grind, please hit the like button, share this with someone who's struggling, and subscribe to join me on this journey of real talk and hard truths.